What's up, everybody? It's Coos. I'm here with Cory Brada from over at Eye of the Hawkeye, over on YouTube. Please go check him out. Also ask that you please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Cory and I are going to talk a little bit about West Virginia's newest addition to the Mountaineer basketball team, Mr. Joe Toussaint. Cory, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Coos. Appreciate you having me on. Happy for Joe, and I know you and I were chatting before we went live here that I think he's going to fit in. I think he fits the Bob Huggins mold.
Yeah, it's good to hear. And we lost a lot of guys, obviously, and some to graduation, some to the portal. So we definitely have a lot of holes to fill. And one of the issues we had last year is we just didn't have that defensive tenacity that we're used to. And from what I understand about Joe Toussaint, and I'm going to let you explain this a little bit. I think we may have found that guy. What do you say to that?
He's about as gritty of a dog in college basketball as you're going to get. I mean, there's no question about that. And we were also talking about the transfer portal before we started recording here, Coos, because as you know, there's a lot of fans, not just Iowa fans, but fans in general of college sports that do not like the transfer portal. And I understand that. And oftentimes when a guy leaves, there's some salty fans. I think there were probably some salty fans when Oscar Tshiebwe left West Virginia. So you can kind of relate to that. There's none of that with Joe Toussaint. At least I haven't encountered any of it because Iowa fans love Joe Toussaint. He's a New York kid. When he came here, Iowa really had a need at point guard. And fans were kind of frustrated because Fran McCaffrey, for Mountaineer fans who aren't familiar with Fran, he's a Philly guy. And, he coached at Lehigh and Siena, and he was assistant at Notre Dame. He was used to having really skilled guards. In fact, he's also at UNC Greensboro. He's used to having really skilled athletic point guards. And so when Toussaint came here, there was a lot of hype around him, although he was maybe a 3-star kid coming out of high school. Offensive game never really developed. So you're not going to get a lot of three-point shooting with him. I mean, you're just not going to get that. I don't see him developing into, he might be able to shoot 30%. I think he was around 27% this past season, but that's just not what he does. And I'm sure Bob Huggins, he realizes that. That's not why he's coming to West Virginia, but he's going to give you defensive tenacity. He's lightning quick. I know you probably remember Anthony Cowan for Maryland a couple of years ago. Was one of the quickest point guards in the country. And I remember he was quoted, I think it was 247 quoted him as saying that Joe Toussaint was the toughest guy he had to guard all year.
Wow.
So that should kind of tickle the ears of Mountaineer fans. He is quick. He can get to the rim. He's really tough. He finishes through contact. He's not real big. I think he's maybe 6 foot on a good day with shoes on. He's 6 foot. But again, he's very, very athletic. He's going to get up in your grill. He's a guy who's going to dive after loose balls. He's not afraid to get dirty. I mean, to me, you're much more familiar with Bob Huggins' style of play, but from everything I know about how he wants to play college basketball, and of course, I from the Hawkeye of the Storm here in Ames. We're in Ames, so I'm kind of in Big 12 country, so I'm somewhat familiar with West Virginia. I think Joe Toussaint's going to fit in really well, and I wish nothing but the best. And they get him for 2 years. I don't think Joe's going to be. I don't know this. Maybe he wants to move on after a year, but my guess is he's going to take those 2 years. And who knows? Maybe he develops a bit of a 3-point shot to where you can be in the low 30s. He does have a good mid-range shot. He had a game winner against Virginia on the road this past season. So he's got the skills and he's got the tenacity, and I think he's got the attitude. You're not going to worry about him getting into trouble. He's never had, that I'm aware of, any problems from an attitude standpoint. So I think all positives if you're Bob Huggins in West Virginia.
Well, it's great to hear, because I'm not going to lie. When I first heard about him visiting, and I kind of saw some, hoopla around Twitter, a lot of people on Twitter was excited about it. I'm thinking, I looked at his stats and I go, 4.3 points a game. Okay. 1.7 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 42% field goal percentage, and less than 30% from three. What's the big deal, right?
Yeah.
But then I see that he's like top 10 or 15 rating in the transfer portal as far as top players go, and a 5-star rating. And I'm going, what am I missing? This kid must be a great defensive player. And then so to hear you describe that makes me feel good about what my assumption was, because that is definitely, you talked about diving on the floor. I mean, that's Bob Huggins' ball right there. And to be honest, those are he will probably be a fan favorite at West Virginia in short order because we embrace that mentality, that blue collar hard worker. Like we had Gabe Osaboy in here for 3 years. The guy averaged single digits his whole career, but might be one of the most popular players to ever play here because he was just he never stopped working. He was diving on the floor, drawing charges, getting steals. I mean, he did all the dirty work and was a difference maker through that. And you could tell, they were a different team with him on the floor. But the fans loved him, man. I mean, the fans just embrace those kind of guys, like the Javon Carters. So it sounds to me like he's a true Mountaineer. I mean, he's just the kind of guy that we need and want on the team.
Honestly, he fits more. I mean, this is not a diss to Fran McCaffery because I love Fran. I'm supportive of Fran. I think Fran's style probably couldn't, and maybe maybe I'm exaggerating this a bit, but I would guess that Fran's style is almost the polar opposite of Bob Huggins. I mean, we were talking before we went on the air. I don't remember the last time these two teams, they haven't played since Fran's been here that I'm aware of, that I can remember. And if they did, it would be a complete contrast of styles. And so Iowa fans loved having Joe because he was a bit of a change. And Iowa was also struggling defensively in a huge way when Joe got here. And they've gotten better these last couple of years, especially this season took a step forward. But they needed his defensive tenacity. But you're right. He's going to be fitting in with the mold. Mm-hmm. And I think the focus – here's the other thing I think Mountaineer fans should be excited about. Yeah, that stat line's not going to blow you away. But if the perception of Joe Toussaint now is that he's a defensive dog, imagine what he's going to be with some Bob Huggins-esque coaching.
Right.
And that's not a diss on Fran. Fran's not a defensive coach. I mean, I think we all can agree with that. Even knows Fran McCaffery. He's an offensive mind. So I just, given what Bob Huggins has done, his pedigree on that end of the court, I think he's going to develop into a guy. Now, I don't know what the roster makeup looks like. So I don't know if he'll end up starting. The rumor on the street was, I know Des Moines Register reporter here in Iowa reported that Joe Toussaint had asked Fran just a couple weeks ago for 30 minutes a game next year. And Fran was not, just basically said, I can't guarantee you that, Joe.
Right.
So I don't know what the minutes allotment will be like in Morgantown. Is there depth at that position right now?
We do have Kedrian Johnson coming back for his 6-year of eligibility, using his COVID year. But Kedy's not really a true one. He's more of a 2, but he's been forced to play the 1, which is kind of where West Virginia's been the last few years. We've always kind of had to force guys into the 1 that really weren't true 1s. So if Joe's a true 1, then they might be able to move Kedy to the 2, and where he's a better fit. That's really his natural position. That's where he played in junior college, and I think he scored over 20 a game in junior college. And he's at West Virginia. He's been asked to do more than he's been asked to play defense and be a point guard. He's not been asked to score the ball that much. So I'm hoping this will put him back to his normal position, and maybe Toussaint can be the 1. Of course, you throw Eric Stevenson in too. I don't know where he'll fit, but I really like what he's got coming in for next year.
And I can tell you this: Joe Toussaint is as true of a 1 as you're ever going to get. He's not. I mean, he's not a 2. I know Fran likes to tout everybody as being multi-positional, and to a degree, a lot of who Iowa recruits can be flexible. Chris Murray spent time with the 5 this year, and Keegan can play the 3 through 5. But Joe Toussaint's a 1. And part of that is he's not a great shooter, but he's also 6 foot. Yeah, like I said, he's blazing quick. Now, here's the thing, Coos. You're going to have to realize this. Joe Toussaint is so fast that there are times when he's totally out of control. Now, a lot of times, though, because Fran is, as you know, an offensive guy, so he's not going to allow his guys to turn the ball over a lot. So he's gotten better as it relates to just being out of control. But there's sometimes where he's just going so fast. And like I've heard Iowa people kind of talk about this. It almost looks like Joe Toussaint is so fast, like he's going too fast for his feet, if that makes sense. Like you'll see, like he just all of a sudden he just wipes out because he's just going too fast. It's not that he doesn't have a destination, or not that he doesn't know where he wants to go, but he's just so fast. So he's going to stay in front of everybody. I don't think defending some of the quicker guards in the Big 12 is going to be a problem in the man-to-man for West Virginia with Joe Toussaint. again, not a lot of length, not a lot of 3-point prowess, good mid-range game, really good defensive skill set, really good speed and quickness, and he's a good passer. I mean, he doesn't commit a lot of turnovers as it relates to passing the ball. And I'd have to look up his assist to turnover ratio. I don't have that in front of me right now, but I would say it was probably pretty good. And here's the other thing you got to realize about Joe Toussaint. He could have went in the transfer portal 2 seasons ago. He could have went in the transfer portal a season ago. He came here and his first year started. I mean, he's actually started games with Jordan Bohannon out. And then he goes back to the bench his sophomore year. Then heading into his junior year, he's told, this is your team, Joe. Jordan's coming back. Mr. Bohannon, who's been here 6 years, he's coming back, but he's going to play the 2. Well, over midway through the season, Iowa was struggling a bit. Jordan was struggling, and they said, hey, Fran said, hey, we're gonna slide Jordan back to the 2, and guess what, Joe? You're gonna come off the bench. And so, despite all of that roller coaster of a ordeal over 3 years for Joe Toussaint, the kid never ever displayed bad body language. Always had his head up. Always was cheering for his teammates. Came in off the bench, gave them energy. Was one of the most integral parts of that Big Ten tournament run this past March. Was Joe Toussaint's energy off the bench. So, no, I think this is not just, again, I don't benefit at all by saying this. I'm saying this because it's the honest truth. Joe Toussaint is going to be a loved kid in Morgantown. There's no question about it.
It sounds like it because he one of the things Huggins complained about last season was, because we were losing. We went through two 7 or 8 game losing streaks in the course of the season, and guys were starting to display bad body language and getting down and complaining and whining and of course Huggins called him out for it. He didn't necessarily name names, but he said, I've got too many guys whining, because they're not getting enough playing time. So it sounds like this is a Bob Huggins type guy.
In every way imaginable. This is about as perfect of a fit. And I think a lot of people were expecting him to go to St. John's because I know St. John's was coming after Toussaint pretty hard, and he's a New York kid. Mm-hmm. But my guess is, and I know that Joe just visited West Virginia this past weekend. My guess is that Joe kind of feels the same way as what you just described, that he's kind of just a perfect fit for West Virginia. And so he's going to be kind of back on the East Coast, not real close to home though, but a fit where he's probably going to get an extensive run.
Yeah. And you may know this, and maybe you don't, I don't know, but West Virginia, Bob Huggins has actually had a really good historic track record with New York and New Jersey kids anyway. Now that was back in the Big East days, though. Since we went to the Big 12, it's been harder to recruit those guys because they're playing so far away from home, on the road games. But matter of fact, our Final Four year in 2010, every guy in our starting 5 was from New York or New Jersey.
Wow.
So Bob Huggins loves those New York because they just have a grittiness to them,
absolutely,
toughness to them. Look at St. Peter's this year in the tournament.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Those are the types of guys that thrive under Bob Huggins. So if Toussaint's that kind of guy, then I have no doubt. And I thought I read somewhere, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read an article, and I just saw the headline. I didn't dive into the article, but that he actually showed interest in West Virginia out of high school and ended up choosing Iowa instead.
That I don't know. I'd have to validate that. I haven't looked back at that. It wouldn't be surprising given Huggins' track record around New York and given who Toussaint is as a player. The appeal to a kid to come to Iowa is the fast tempo. And I'm not saying that West Virginia basketball is not fun to watch. But I think there is a bit of that appeal for someone who has quickness and speed to his advantage and who likes to go fast like Joe Toussaint. I will say this. I kind of brought that up, but you mentioned it too. There were real thoughts, and I heard this from people who I considered to be in the know, that Joe really wanted to be back close to home. So if you think about that, he left probably because he didn't have a guarantee of minutes. And again, no problem with him leaving. He stuck it out here 3 tough years. But for him to go to West Virginia as opposed to going to a Xavier or going more like St. John's, I guess would be more reasonable. I don't know if Syracuse was after him or not. But my point is, to go to West Virginia, that really, I think, speaks to the fact that he must believe that this is a perfect fit. And he committed really early. Like, he had a lot of schools. Kansas State was after him. I heard Oklahoma State was after him. Mentioned St. John's, Xavier, Drake was after him. a lot of really good basketball schools. He decided to go to a place that's not real close to home. So that tells me he's bought in. And that should make West Virginia fans not only feel good about the grab, but also feel good about Bob Huggins and what work he's doing in the transfer portal to be able to get a commitment like this right after a visit. I believe this is Joe Toussaint's only visit.
Yeah, that's great. We weren't expecting him to commit this quickly, and I'm pretty confident Huggins would not guarantee him any minutes because that just doesn't seem like his style. But he probably guaranteed him the opportunity to earn those minutes.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Toussaint probably feels like, he has a really good chance to win them because of the lack of depth we have right now. Because, like I said, we lost most of our team. We basically have a bunch of freshmen. All of our freshmen were coming back. We lost we have like 5 freshmen and Kedrian Johnson. We had 6 guys returning from last year's team, and most of those freshmen didn't even play much, if at all. So, I mean, we are the cupboard is really bare. So we're almost starting over.
Well, here's the thing about too. Let me add this: the whole idea that the reason Joe Toussaint left is because Fran wouldn't guarantee him minutes. That may partially be true, but I wonder if that was a bit of a formality because I think he's shown by sticking it out as long as he did here that he's a pretty loyal guy.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is that he was just kind of, I don't know if it was subconscious or he was looking for validation that, hey, I need to go spread my wings somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps that pitch to Fran was like, hey, I really want to stay, but I need this. And obviously, like you said, you can't really guarantee. I don't think Fran's that type of guy. I doubt Bob Huggins is that type of guy where you're going to guarantee him, we're going to give you 30 minutes a game. Iowa's got a 4-star point guard, Desante Bowen, coming in next year. They've got Aaron Eulis, brother of Tyler Eulis, who's an NBA player, who's, going to be a junior next year. They've got guys back there. You're not going to guarantee somebody 30 minutes a game as a true point guard because you're not going to be playing at the 2. So you're probably right. I'm sure Bob Huggins probably did not guarantee him those minutes, but it was probably a situation where Joe wanted to change of scenery. And again, I just don't blame it. I think you and I both agree the transfer portal has its downsides, but it definitely has its benefits. And for someone like Joe, I wish nothing but the best for him. And I think this is going to be a good move for him as a player. And I think he'll play pro somewhere. I don't think it'll be in the NBA. I don't think he's got the 3-point shot or the offensive skills to play in the NBA. But I do think he'll play pro somewhere and be able to get coached by somebody like Fran and then get 2 years with Bob Huggins. I'd say that's a pretty darn good resume heading into Europe or wherever he ends up.
Yeah, I mean, you spend 3 years under an offensive-minded coach, and then learning the offensives. Not that Bob Huggins can't coach offense,
sure,
but you see what I mean.
Absolutely,
a guy who's really where offense is his strength, and then you go to Huggins where defense is probably his strength, and you kind of get both sides of the coin, and you walk away a really well-rounded player, ready to go to Europe or Japan or wherever, and be probably a pretty solid player, I would think.
Absolutely, no, I think. Like I said, I think that there really is not a better case scenario. If you had to ask me one kid or one school, I should say that would be the perfect fit for Joe Toussaint, I might have to go West Virginia. And I'm no expert on the Mountaineers, but when I heard that West Virginia had gotten him on campus, you start to get the feeling that it also tells me that Joe Toussaint's a smart kid.
But everybody, I hope you've enjoyed Cory's content tonight. I think his knowledge of Iowa basketball is definitely a lot more than what I could bring, and about Mr. Toussaint coming to Morgantown. I think we all need to be excited about it. Talking to Cory gets me even more excited about it. I'm really looking forward to seeing this young man in the old gold and blue. And everybody, right underneath on the bottom of the screen there, you'll see my Twitter. You'll see Cory's Twitter. Go check us out. And there again, obviously you can find Cory on From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube. Where else can they find you at?
Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and podcast available on Spotify, any podcast platform. We're basically on everything.
Awesome. And they also do college football as well. So
college football, and just like you, Coos, I'm work with Mark Rogers. So if you haven't checked out the football channel with Mark, Iowa, the voice of college football on YouTube. College basketball, college football, all the above.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody go check Cory out and check out all of his work when you get the opportunity. And Cory, I really appreciate you giving us your time and giving us some insight on Mr. Toussaint and what we can expect from him.
Appreciate it, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. You have a great one.